While Donald Trump's address last night to the joint session of Congress was disastrous, discombobulated, and quite frankly just dumb, the messaging response from Democrats was anything but that. We saw Bernie Sanders and Alyssa Slotkin respond with their own speeches directed at the lies that Donald Trump told in his, but we also saw Democrats in the House combating the lies that were told. And two incredible examples were my congressman and Maxwell Frost, who spoke with Rachel Maddow in a clip that we are going to check out, as well as my interview with someone that you know we love on this show, Congressman Jim McGovern, who predicted a little bit ahead of the speech the lies that Donald Trump was going to tell, and of course called out his co-president and Elon Musk as well. And I think we got to check those clips out. But before we do, as always, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way and it really does mean a lot to me. Now let's first hear from Maxwell Frost.
Joining us now is one of the Democrats who actually walked out of the speech tonight, Florida Democratic Congressman Maxwell Frost. We saw him leave the House chamber. He took off his jacket. You could see the T-shirt he was wearing over his dress shirt. It says, "No kings live here." Congressman Frost, really appreciate you making time to be with us tonight. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for having me on.
Tell us about the decision to wear that shirt and to walk out at the moment you did.
I think it's important for people to see that their leaders understand that this is not a normal moment. We're in the middle of a billionaire administrative takeover and coup of our country, where they want to cut Medicaid, cut Social Security, cut Medicare, cut all the things that we fought for and earned in order to give tax breaks to billionaires and corporations. It's not a news story for this country, but it is the most overt I think it's ever been. And so in the spirit of being a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, but also coming from organizing, decided to do a walkout with a group of members wearing a message that not only, the press could see, but that the president could see. He calls himself a king, but we're a country of no kings, especially when these kings want to do nothing for the people and take all the money and give it to themselves. That's exactly what Donald Trump wants to do.
Let me ask about that, the specificity of the message there. I mean, one of the issues that I think the country is sort of having a hard time calibrating, like getting a sense of like how big is this, how different is this from previous political confrontations we've had between people with different ideas about the way the government should run or what we should be doing with our money. I think one of the things that people just can't grasp is the king idea, right? The king idea is not just the unitary presidency, right? It's not just about consolidating power over the executive branch. The idea of a king, which is what you had on your back of your shirt, is that you've got a unitary power, that the Congress is decorative or beside the point or could be abolished and nothing would happen, that the courts are decorative. The courts are there to essentially ratify what the ruler wants to do, and that the rule of law is really just the rule of the ruler, and the law can be dressed up to occasion whatever it is he wants. Is that the scale of threat to this country that you think we are literally up against, or is this a hyperbolic charge?
It's not hyperbolic at all. And this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. It is all in Project 2025. Donald Trump is the president, but he is also the Speaker of the House, effectively. He has an entire Republican Congress that is allowing him to do whatever he wants. None of them utter a peep against what he's saying unless their town halls are stormed and either they're running out or they say, maybe I disapprove a little bit. But Donald Trump has complete control over the Republicans in Congress. And so what the founders set out to do is have a Congress and have a presidency that were co-equal branches of government, checks on one another, checks and balances. But we don't have that right now. We have one person who runs the Congress because he runs the entire majority.
One of the things that we saw in the Democratic response from Senator Slotkin was an interesting choice. I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like this before. And you talk about your organizing background. She sort of raised the alarm a little bit along the lines that you were talking about tonight, and then said, as a CIA officer, which is her past, that she's seen democracies flicker out in other parts of the world. And then she gave Americans a list of things they can do to try to hold on to our democracy, talking about contacting their member of Congress, joining groups that are working to try to hold on to our democracy. She said pointedly, if there isn't a group that you feel like is in your area or among people who you know is doing the work that you think ought to be done, you need to found that group. You need to start that yourself. Very pointed, organizing message from a member of Congress who's not thought of as a real radical. I wonder if if I get your reaction to that, and if you had anything to add in terms of what you think people within the sound of your voice ought to be doing right now, given the dire prospects that you see for the country.
I had a town hall about a week and a half ago when we put out the link. Within 4 hours of one email, we had over 600 RSVPs. And at this standing room only town hall, the message was clear from everybody. Two things. They wanted to learn about how serious and dire the situation is. And two, they wanted to be put to work. And as someone who comes from an organizing background, March for Our Lives and other organizations, it is a gold mine when the people contact you and say, what can I do? You know, I come from going to people and knocking on their doors and begging them to volunteer, begging them to get involved. And now the people are saying, put us to work. We want to fight for our democracy, for our country, for Medicare, for Medicaid, for programs that help and that working people have earned. And so I think it is important to make sure people know that the United States, our democracy can break. We can lose it if we don't defend it. And fascism and authoritarians, they gain power when there is no opposition. That's part of the reason I've told people you have to make the decision. Are we the minority or are we the opposition? Because I do believe an authoritarian can take hold when it's just the minority. But when there's a strong opposition, we can fight it back and we can come back stronger than ever. And so I agree with giving people something to do. But first off, you got to explain to people how serious the situation is.
Congressman Maxwell Frost, one of a number of Democrats who did not make it through the speech tonight, left in the middle of the president's remarks. Congressman, I really appreciate you joining us tonight and being with us. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. I should mention, I gave you a list a little bit earlier on about the Democrats who we know did walk out during the speech. Other than the initial confrontation that happened basically right as President Trump started speaking, and that was Congressman Al Green, and they sort of performatively summoned the sergeant-at-arms to escort him out. A very dramatic moment there. A number of other Democrats walked out during the speech. They include Maxwell Frost, who we just spoke with, also Ayanna Pressley, Jasmine Crockett, Maxine Dexter from Maryland, Andrea Salinas from Oregon, Ilhan Omar, Pramila Jayapal, Melanie Stansbury from New Mexico, Jamie Raskin from Maryland, who we spoke with earlier this evening, Zoe Lofgren from California, who's a member of the January 6th investigation. Also, at least 2 Democratic U.S. senators left the room, Senator Chris Van Hollen and Senator Bernie Sanders.
It is not surprising that Democrats just walked out of Donald Trump's speech. It was dragging, it was weird, it was all over the place. I spoke with several members of Congress last night who told me that they were just kind of barely paying attention at most points. There was a kind of malaise that fell over the entirety of the crowd. Sure, Republicans were standing up and clapping in their cult-like fashion as many times as they possibly could, but even they were bored. It was only in moments when Donald Trump would talk about invading Greenland or deciding that he was going to kick a Democrat out, forcibly remove Rep. Green from the chamber, that there was some level of interest, but not even really. It was just a strange speech, unfocused on the things that Donald Trump promised to be locked in on the campaign trail. Grocery prices, which are soaring, benefits that are being slashed, corruption he said he was going to go after, but the opposite has in fact happened. And we heard a lot of that from an incredible interview with Rep. Jim McGovern.
Congressman, we know that Elon Musk is tweeting about 1,800 times a day now, and he's happy to talk about how proud he is to be cutting Social Security, how proud he is to want to cut Medicaid along with Republicans in the House. But he's too afraid to come before Congress and be confronted about that. If you could speak directly to Elon Musk, what would it be that you would say to him?
Have you ever visited a supermarket? Have you ever talked to anybody on Snap? Do you know what it's like to not be able to afford your rent at the end of a month? Do you have any clue what real people are going through? And do you have any decency in terms of how you're approaching your supposed job, where you're just laying people off, public servants who do incredibly good things to help people, with no humanity, with no decency, you're just laying them off. What a cruel and rotten thing to do. I'd say, how do you live with yourself?
And they really seem to not care. And one of the lies that we have to talk about and call out the most is that Elon Musk is a volunteer. He's there because he's happily helping America become this better country by getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. We know it's not the case. Elon is there to enrich himself. But how do we very specifically deliver that message to people who aren't necessarily hearing about politics all the time?
Well, I think the message is starting to get out, because in the first 2 months, Trump and Musk have created, have been responsible for chaos, corruption, and rising costs. And I mean, everywhere I go now, people are telling me they either have someone in their family or they know somebody who's been laid off, or they're worried about, are they get their Social Security check on time? I mean, my guess tonight, son has a disability. She relies heavily on Medicaid, is wondering whether or not Medicaid will be there to be able to make sure that her son's health care needs are met. So it's beginning to sink in. Look, I mean, Democrats, one of these we need to do, and we're going to start to do, is do shadow hearings. Yeah. I mean, we don't control the House or the Senate, so we can't schedule hearings. Well, we can schedule our own hearings and bring people who are adversely impacted to the forefront, and help get the word out, what this administration is all about. I mean, it is cruel. I mean, they're doubling down on the cruelty, and I've never quite seen anything like this ever.
Yeah, and although we may not have the power to do everything we want to combat it, using our voices is the best thing we can, making a scene, having viral moments. You are doing that. You have been one of my favorite communicators. You're bringing the heat. You are making people feel like there is someone fighting for them, and it really means a lot to me. I really appreciate it.
Well, look, I came to Congress to help people, and government and public service is not about making profits. It's about helping people. Donald Trump and Elon Musk have never done one day of public service in their life, and people I care about are being hurt, and so I'm going to fight like hell on their behalf. And but I appreciate you amplifying some of these messages. We got to get the word out.
Absolutely, we do.
Thank you.
Such an incredible opportunity to talk with someone who I think is one of the best and most underrated communicators in our Democratic Party. I was so fortunate to join a group of creators alongside Adam Mockler, alongside Brian Tyler Cohen, other folks you watch on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, wherever you're checking out political news. I was so excited to be joined with those folks through an organization called Chorus that I've talked about before on the show. We are working to build liberal media. We are working to elevate voices in different spaces in our political world, and also to connect them with members of Congress so that we can make sure we are delivering a better message to folks who are maybe not necessarily always tuning into their politics, but sometimes and more often bumping into them. That is what we have to be doing. These are the moments that we have to make in these big events where we have to combat Trump. And you are a part of that just by watching this video, and I want to thank you for that. And if you want to support this channel, of course, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.